You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in. We were really
a Mamamia podcast.
It was February 2016, and Australian basketball legend Lauren Jackson was looking down the barrel of her 5th Olympic Games in Rio. Lauren was already an icon as one of the best basketballers in the whole world. She played professionally in America for most of her career, and then she'd injured her knee in 2015, a common job hazard for professional basketballers. But she was in recovery, and she was hopeful that she'd get to play at one more Olympics. And then Lauren did something that millions of women do every day without even thinking. She went and got her legs waxed. The thing is, no one was expecting what happened next. From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, a podcast where people from all walks of life tell their stories very candidly and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. My name is Mia Friedman. Lauren Jackson is an absolute bona fide Australian sporting legend. She's the daughter of 2 retired professional basketball players, and she was called up to play for the Opals, Australia's national team, when she was just 16 years old. At 18, she was playing in the Women's National Basketball League in America for the Seattle Storm as an MVP. Yep, a real most valuable player. She's represented Australia at 4 Olympic Games, and she was even the flag bearer for us at the 2012 London Olympics. Now, all athletes know that their years playing professionally are limited by the wear and tear on their bodies. But Lauren Jackson never anticipated that it would be a leg wax that would be the thing that ultimately forced her into retirement at 34. In 2016, that is exactly, upsettingly, what happened. So how do you start your life over at 34 when more than 2/3 of it have been spent as a professional basketball player? And what happens next? Well, turns out quite a lot. Here's my conversation with Aussie legend Lauren Jackson. When you were a kid, do you remember being confused by the fact that people always thought you were older than you were because of your height?
Well, absolutely. People always they look at you and they go, right, you must be 8 or 9 years old, and I was probably 4 or 5. And so obviously my communication skills weren't that good at that point in time. And my parents had to explain it to me at one point. People expect more of you because you're so much bigger than everybody else. So yeah, I'm going through that a little bit at the moment with my 2-year-old who's enormous. He's only 2, but he's probably weighs about 23 kilo, and he's a big little dude. And just sort of having to explain to his brother as well, like, he's only a baby. He's actually only 2 years old. He's not big enough to understand that. So,
Was there a time when you felt, I'm among my people?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the best moments of my life was walking into the Australian Institute of Sport when I was 15. I was like, oh my God. The minute I walked in there, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to feel like. I was always such an outcast at school and always picked on for various reasons, but, mainly because I was so big, so tall. The minute I walked into the Australian Institute Hall of Residence, I just was around rowers and swimmers and footballers, basketballers. So I just felt like I was home. I felt like who I was supposed to be. Everyone wore sweats everywhere and tracksuits, and that's just how I lived. That's still how I live. And yeah, that was my moment.
Was it also finally being amongst people who were focused on what their body could do rather than how their body looked?
I think so. I think just being accepted as an athlete, I think that culture for me was something that I grew up in. So mum and dad were both athletes. They both represented Australia, and I sort of grew up around sports. I always wanted to be a basketball player. I was always at the basketball courts around basketball teams. Yeah, when I went to school, nobody understood that. Nobody understood me. And then, when you're in a team, for sure, you get swept up in that culture and that environment. Yeah, but for sure, there's no doubt in my mind. That was about performing and being an athlete and being the very best we could be.
When people talk about body image, they often think about weight and size. And I've been listening to quite a few interviews with you before today and watching them. And the way people joke around about your height, they do it in a way that they wouldn't if it was someone who was, bigger or very, very thin. Like, it seems to be an acceptable thing to joke about. How does that feel for you?
Oh, I don't mind. I'm so used to it. My whole life I've been looked at and stared at and just gawked at. And I think even from a young age, it got to the point where I learned to tune it out. Like I don't even realize it's going on. In fact, I think I've just come to expect that there is going to be the tall joke and I'm going to have to accept it and laugh about it, move on. But you know what? It doesn't actually bother me at all. And if I wasn't this tall, would I have been as successful as I was? I don't know. It really doesn't bother me. There's a lot of other things in the world to worry about. And that,
What about when you were a teenage girl?
yeah, it was harder then. It was definitely a lot harder then. Like going back to how it was in high school here in Albury, it was hard. You know, I really struggled with my height. I think I was about 6'2" when I was 12 or 13, and that's very tall. I did feel really different, but basketball was sort of a safe haven for me. And I knew, like, I sort of had this map in my head and my plan, which was going to take me to the Australian Institute of Sport. It was going to take me all over the world playing basketball. And as much as it did affect me, and there were moments, I'm telling you, like I really struggled, I think just with anxiety, with all sorts of different things. But I always had basketball there to sort of pick me up. And I knew that if I was good at basketball, it didn't matter what they were saying. It didn't matter how people viewed me or perceived me. And it's the same now. I see photos of myself now and I'm just like, oh my God, you're huge. Like I really am. But I guess it's one of those things that you just learn to live with. And I love it. I love sort of just being the biggest.
Seattle, when you were 19, you were first draft.
So you know, Seattle had just come into the league the year before, and I think they'd only won 6 games or something. And I was, you know, the rookie from Australia. And yeah, that's how I was selected off the back of the 2000 Olympics. They'd sort of seen how I competed and played against the US. Yeah, that's how I got selected. And it was really special, quite overwhelming, and yeah, full on.
You'd risen to the top of the ranks in Australia. You'd come off the back of the Olympics. Was it always America the goal as an elite basketballer? What's the ultimate?
Yeah, well, as a youngster, you know, I always said to my parents, I'm going to be the first woman to play in the NBA. That's my goal. And they never said, no, you won't be. You know, when the WNBA came about, I think it was 97, and that was my first year at the AIS. And then it became a possibility, a reality, and something to really strive for. And then as the years sort of went by leading to 2001, the WNBA just grew in professionalism, in visibility. Like they were on TV in Australia at that point, which was incredible to have an American sport. You know, even the NBA finals, they were on TV too in Australia. But to have that sort of visibility of a professional league like that was just incredible. And it gave me something to really, I guess, strive for. I did definitely want to play over there.
What's the difference culturally between Australian elite female basketballers and American elite female basketballers?
I don't know. That's hard to articulate. There is definitely a difference. For me, the difference was it is a business over there. You know, it's transactional. You're over there and it's sort of game time, you know. Whereas here, we're probably a little bit more in tune with the athletes' feelings. Like there's not as many athletes either. You know, over in America, there's millions and millions and millions of people playing, and they play through the NCAA competition in college, and then they go into professional sport. And it does just become a business. It really does. And pros is everything you see on TV when you're watching, you know, those football documentaries and things like that. That's what it feels like. It's just sport. It's really transactional. If you're not performing, you're out. Probably that's the main difference. Like I said, we just don't have the same amount of athletes over here. And I think too, the women's national basketball team over there, they could take probably 3 teams to an Olympic Games or a World Championships and potentially win gold, silver and bronze. Like that's the type of depth they have. We couldn't do that.
And for someone who hasn't played team sports before, what are the dynamics, the interpersonal dynamics of a team at that level? Like when you arrive as the new girl, how does it work?
It's probably a little bit like you've seen on TV. There's probably a bit of initiation and you got to prove yourself. It's like anything in real life. You know, you can't just sort of step into a position and demand respect. You have to earn it. And I think that's sort of like a team dynamic for sure. You have to earn the respect of your peers and your teammates. And the respect of the fans too and the organisation that you're playing in. So you've got to sort of prove yourself. And I mean, that would probably be the biggest thing. And in terms of just personalities, because when you're talking about professional athletes, you're talking about egos, and everyone's there every single day trying to be the very best they can be and vying for that position on a team. And you really have to sort of manage those relationships, and you don't like everybody. It's like impossible to like everybody. So it's just finding out how to respect one another, even if you don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And then having a common goal, you're working towards an objective, a goal, just living the values of the team. It's sort of a bit of a framework.
Is it like friends or sisters or work colleagues?
That's a really interesting question. It's probably a little bit of both, probably work colleagues and sisters, I would say. It takes time to develop and build those relationships, but toward the end of a season or, with the Australian team, a lot of those girls I'd played with for 10, 12, 15 years, and we may not like each other and we might not be the best of friends, but, if push come to shove, we would be there for each other no matter what, I would say it does become a bit of a sisterhood for sure. It's pretty special. Like I said, at points it is transactional and you do sort of get bumped around from team to team and travel a lot. And so it's interesting.
Is it possible to have relationships with people who are civilians and not other professional athletes?
I don't think so. I mean, probably. Look, the men do it all the time, right? For me, it didn't work out like that. I couldn't sort of sustain a relationship during my career, even if it was other athletes or with somebody who wasn't an athlete. And look, I still love those people so much, and it didn't end badly for bad reason, but I think I was so selfish and I spent all my time thinking about my body. Everything worked around my routine, which was, my game day routine. It is just all about yourself. And it's very hard to find somebody that can sort of sacrifice so much over a period of time. And you just become very self-dependent, and I did. And that's probably why I'm still single to this day.
Did you date teammates?
Yeah, never worked out, obviously, but it's hard. Like I said, when you've got such a massive ego, you want to be the best and you're really trying to be, it's hard. Like, I guess I wasn't right in relationships. And to be honest, I think I always get the best out of myself when I'm able to be self-reliant and really with my time, like I guess just making sure that I've got the time to achieve the things that I want to achieve, whether that's working, whether that's school. Now it's become my children. Everything is about my kids and making sure they have everything that they need.
What's the longest relationship you've ever had?
I was in a relationship for about 6 years early on, but it didn't last because I started traveling overseas. So
6 years is a long time.
Yeah, but I was really, really young and I wasn't like great in it. So
you're very hard on yourself.
No, I'm not. I guess I got to the point where I knew what I wanted out of life and what has made me really, really happy. And that experience that I've had in relationships, I know that I'm a much better person to myself and to the people around me, not having to focus on another adult human.
So actually what you are is an incredibly evolved human in that you're not looking for anyone to complete you.
No. I feel complete. I'm good. Yeah. No, the minute I had my first child, I was like, oh my God.
That's the missing piece.
Yeah. I don't want anything else in life. Like I always felt like I was longing for something more. And I think that had a lot to do with just the travel and just focusing so much on sport. I never really, there was something missing. There was just always something missing. And the minute I saw my first little boy, I was like, oh my God, this is it. I'm done. Like I actually have never been happier and I never will be happier.
Yeah, right. You're a single mum. I was going to ask you about sharing those moments, like the cute things your kids say, the dumb things, the things that worry you. Who's your person to do that with?
My mum and dad are like my best mates, and I never have wanted for anything from anybody, but my mum was able to pick me up in some of my darkest moments, and they've seen me at my very best and my very worst, and I trust them with my life. And I think also throughout my career I've learned to trust certain people and not trust many other people. So my parents are definitely those people for me, and they're incredible.
Were there times that people have tried to take advantage of you?
Oh, I mean, throughout my career, I've met a lot of people. I've had a lot of friends and done all of that. But at the end of the day, I feel like you really can only rely on yourself. And for me, it's my parents as well. I do have a couple of really close friends that I see occasionally, but obviously I don't live in a major city. So it's hard to sort of catch up. And then my other close friends are over in America. So it's all via text and social media and stuff. I love them and I miss them, but it's not the same as having mum just here who I can, bounce anything off.
When you went and played in Russia, and you've also played in Korea, what were those experiences like? Tell me a little bit about Russia, the owner of the team you became very close to.
He ended up being assassinated. He was assassinated in 2009. He was an interesting character. The story was that he was an ex-KGB spy and he was a highly intellectual man, very scary as well. Like his stories, which were not stories, they were real. I realized they were real when I looked him up online, Shabtai. Yeah, it just was a different world. He had all the money in the world and he just treated us like gold.
What kind of person buys a basketball team?
I don't know. A lot of rich Russian men buy sporting teams. I think he was actually married to one of the Russian female basketballers, the captain of the Russian basketball team. So I think Anna definitely played a big part in that. And he built like this big venue over there and tried to sort of have like a high performance venue for kids over there to grow up and rise to the ranks through. He was trying to do the right thing, I believe.
That must have been devastating. Were you still playing in Russia when he was killed?
Well, I'd signed a contract to play over there again, but I'd fractured my back over in America. So I'd come back here and I was rehabbing in Canberra, and I was probably about 2 weeks from getting on the plane and getting back over there. And I got a call from my teammate, Sue, this one night. It was storming and she just said, he's dead, he's dead. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, yeah, Shabtai's gone. And I think it blew our minds just in terms of he was killed in his car. It was a car that we drove in with him all the time and, yeah, devastating.
It seems like when you're a professional athlete at that level, your life is not your own in a way, or is it? Like, do you get to choose who you play for, where you live, or are you a bit at the mercy?
Well, once you get over there, you're at the mercy of the club for sure. But, we get contracts just same as anyone. You either accept them or you don't. So for me, when I accepted the Russian contract, I sort of accepted the conditions, I suppose. You make sure you get all the conditions put in there by which you want to live by. I guess that's how it works. And then you go over there and find your new house and your, new cultures. And it's hard like playing over in Europe because, often you're not speaking the same language as the coach and or the players. And
How does that work?
You just find other ways to communicate. And there was one time I remember we were playing on a team where the coach spoke a different language to the Russian athletes. The Russian spoke Russian and American and English. It's interesting, yeah.
What's the best moment when you're playing? Like, is it the moment that the ball goes through the hoop? Is it when it's finished and you've won? What's the most in flow that you feel when you're playing?
There were some games where, you feel amazing, you feel unstoppable. Like every shot's going in, you feel like you're floating, and then there's some games where you feel like you've got lead weights in your feet. It just depends on how your body's, I guess, ready to go. And it all comes down to your food, your sleep, your preparation. And I think that's why, sort of going back to when we're talking about the egocentricness of athletes and everything's about their preparation, it all comes down to being on the court. So I think those moments where it does feel amazing and you try and emulate that, but you never can, but they are the best moments for sure.
I'm Mia Friedman and you're listening to No Filter with Lauren Jackson. You've got a degree in gender studies, among others, that you've studied since your retirement. With what you've learnt in gender studies, do you look back at your time playing for the WNBL and the difference in the men's teams and the women's teams?
Oh, absolutely. The gap between the men and the women in basketball, no matter where you are in the world, is enormous.
What is that gap? What does it actually look like?
It's millions. I think the highest paid player in the WNBA is, I think, probably around 220, 30. I don't know. I don't have the numbers on the top of my head. And then you look at the highest paid men's player and it's upwards of 80, 90 million per season probably. So It's a lot. And the other thing is for female athletes as well, we don't get to play just one season. I guess to sort of build that wealth and to live as a female athlete sustainably, you have to play year round. So you don't get the time to recover. You don't get the time to look after your body. You've got to go from season to season to national team to a different season. So it's just ongoing and it's constant. And I think that's another really big issue for female basketball players because they just don't get the break.
How do the female players feel about the male players? Like, is there much dating across ranks? Is there resentment? I mean, I know I'm generalising, but...
No, I'm pretty sure there is. I mean, I wouldn't know now. I'm so far out of it. But like when I was playing, yeah, absolutely. When you're around people a lot, like relationships happen and you see that in every aspect of life. I mean, we've seen it in politics even. It does happen. And, you know, people's lives are complicated. They're complex and things happen like that. So there is a lot of dating. There's a lot of friendships. There's a lot of craziness, but it's sport, you know, it's what you're in and it's life. You just have to manage it and then make sure you go out the next day and you're playing the best basketball you can.
The moment that you found out that you were going to have to retire a lot earlier than you hoped to, can you tell me about that moment? Can you tell me about that day?
I played in China and I got this sort of pain in the back of my knee, which I got every year. Like it was like this reoccurring pain that sort of hit me mid-year every year and nobody could pinpoint or identify what it was. And then I was in China, the same pain came back in the back of my knee and this time it didn't go away. And I was in a jump ball and I felt my knee crack and I was like, oh my God, that really hurt. Anyway, I kept playing. They didn't really do anything about it. So I didn't push it. Like when you're on contract like that, again, the language barrier, there's a lot of barriers there to getting the help you need, to getting medical assistance. The treatment methods are a lot different to what they would be here. So I kind of let it slide and then I played another game and then it cracked again and the pain got a little bit worse. And by this point, it was very sharp walking. But again, they wanted me to play the next game. So I did. And I mean, when I tell you I was in tears for the first half of basketball and my coach would not sub me off. Anyway, that was it. I played one half of basketball and I looked at them and said, do not put me back out there because I actually couldn't walk by this point. And as soon as I got an opportunity to get on a plane, I got on a plane and came home. Fortunately, my mum was over there at this point. She'd come over because she knew I was having issues with it just as a support. And she got me out of there and then I got back here and went and had it operated on. I kept re-injuring it, so I had to keep getting it operated on. And it went on for about a year and a half, this process. And, it just basically degenerated. And then the very last sort of injury was an ACL tear. And I didn't know about it until they went in and operated on the last time. And then the AIS said to me at that point, look, we'll support you to try and get you through to Rio.
The Olympics.
Yeah, to Rio. And I was like, okay, I've got 6 months to get this right. And then I got a staph infection in my knee from a leg wax about a month after the operation. And that was it. So, because I thought, it was a bit hot and everything. And then it got really swollen and I'd probably left it a little bit too long. And I had to go back into hospital for 2 weeks with that infection. And that was it. So I said to my doctors and everything, you have to tell me to stop because I won't stop. I can't do it on my own. I cannot call it myself. And so they did. They said, righto, we don't think you're going to be able to play again. You need to get your leg fixed and start your life outside of basketball. So that was a relief. It was an immediate weight off my shoulders because it had just been a really rough 2 years or so and I'd been on sort of medication and antidepressants and just trying to get right and I just couldn't get right. So it was a bit of a relief in the sense that I could look forward and start to just create my life. But it was a very lonely morning the next morning, waking up and not having to go to the gym or not having to go and do anything at all, like nothing. I had nothing to do.
How do you get your head around that or your body around that after striving and then just stop?
It was full on. It was a really hard time. And then, I went and had sort of a half knee replacement on my leg. I got to about 6 weeks with that and I said to my mum, I need to get off everything I'm taking. Like I want to start living my life now and I need to get some clarity and I can't think
What were you like, painkillers and
Yeah, painkillers,
lots of medications?
antidepressants.
Yeah.
I had, there was a lot of stuff like sleeping pills. There was
Cocktail.
just,
Yeah.
it was crazy. It actually felt like I was coming off all of this stuff. So it's
Yeah.
years of medications
Withdrawal,
and
for
full
sure.
on withdrawals. Anyway, my mum supported me through that. It took about 2 weeks to like fully get off everything. Yeah, and then life happened, and I got to really focus on the things that I wanted to do and things that I hadn't been able to do, just fun stuff, just living, and not having to worry.
When you're a professional athlete, do many careers end in a way of your choosing? Like, I think about it a bit like politicians, like they never leave of their own accord. They always get knifed. Is it a little bit like that with athletes? Or do some people just go, you know what, I'm going to go out on top?
Look, some people have the fairy tale, there's no doubt. Even like Sue, my teammate over in Seattle, she's 40 now, and they could very well win another championship. She's just won 5 Olympic gold medals in Tokyo.
Wow.
She's, playing unbelievable basketball, and she's remarkable, and this is a kid, I grew up with her. We grew up playing together. So she's had the fairy tale. And, for her, if it's not her body and it's mentally she's done, then that's awesome. She's done it on her own terms, but when bodies break down, that's how it goes, and you have to sort of make that decision, and it becomes about quality of life and how you want to live your life. And for me, the roller coaster I was on and just how it was playing out was so toxic and so bad, and I needed to get away.
I've heard famous people say that when you become famous quite young, you get a bit cryogenically frozen at that age that you became famous. Is it the same for athletes? Like, you sort of go into a tunnel of basketball and then you came out the other side of that tunnel when you retired at how old, like 34?
Yeah, I think it was around that age, yep.
So do you sort of look around and go, what now? Or does someone help you? Because you're super famous, you're super visible, but what do you do?
I've been studying, and I was really fortunate to get an opportunity with a basketball club here to do some just upskilling and get some experience in the front office. And look, I'm not the most out there person. So in terms of, I suppose, selling myself in media or being on TV or anything like that, I was not good at that. So for me, administration was perfect, to be behind the scenes and doing what I loved, which was still staying in basketball. So I got that opportunity, and then now, I'm still in administration, and I'll probably be here until I retire. And I absolutely love being able to be a part of driving the league and basketball in Australia forward.
How is it different to when you were coming up? What do you see in the young female players?
It is really different. They've got a lot more pressures in terms of social media. I think social media has changed the game completely for everybody, for all young people. It's just changed the way that they view society. And I guess, for us, it's trying to work with that and understand it and trying to put ourselves in their shoes. I think just trying to be empathetic to the things that they're going through. But also, too, they've got much more of a platform to, discuss their passions and their causes and who they are. And I think that's really cool as well. Like, they become more recognizable and more visible, which is exciting for them.
Do you think social media makes it harder than it was for you?
Definitely. If social media was around when I was playing, I probably would have gotten into a lot of trouble, a lot. I was out there. I loved playing up. I loved going to the pub. I loved drinking with my teammates. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time. I was young. That's what you do. I'm really glad that that wasn't the case. In saying that, it has given the athletes a platform that they never had before, particularly female athletes. And it's changed, I think, the nature of being a female athlete, particularly in Australia. So it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. But I think the good stuff far outweighs the bad stuff.
So much of being an athlete is about mastering your body, isn't it? It's about making it do what you want it to do in the best possible way. When you were pregnant, how did that feel? Did that feel good, like I can just relax, or was it more challenging because it was out of your control?
I actually didn't love being pregnant. I can't explain it. I really didn't enjoy being pregnant, but it wasn't because of the way that I looked. It was because of the way that I felt. I thought I looked incredible. It wasn't until the babies popped out and I was still quite large and eating the same food I was when I was pregnant. I think it was more the body after the baby, which was probably harder for me to sort of handle. And I'm still dealing with that. Like I'm still trying to lose the 30 or 40 kilos that I put on when I had my kids. So me looking at life now, as opposed to when I was an athlete, it is a much more holistic approach. And like I said to you, it is about being healthy and happy for my kids and being able to give them exactly what they need. And a part of that obviously is my body and making sure that my body is able to be with them and do the things that they want to do and kick their butts on the basketball court when they get a bit older, you know? So I've had to really make sure that I lose some kilos and I look after my health, which I'm doing. So it's good.
Do you play for fun still? Or does it feel like work?
No, it doesn't. When I was an athlete, I always looked forward to the day that I could play social competition. And I think because of that pressure, like I really did struggle with the pressure because it took so much energy and it was so draining on me. The idea of social basketball was just so beautiful. And I started playing social basketball this year in Albury and absolutely have loved it. But every team we come up against, people are complaining. So it's sort of, that's taken away the enjoyment because I just feel bad now.
Right. Yeah.
But I love it. I absolutely love the game. The game itself is so beautiful. And to be a part of it in an administrative role in Australia, it's just so special to me. And I'll be forever thankful to Basketball Australia for giving me this opportunity because I absolutely love it.
They're lucky to have you.
Oh, I don't know. You know, I just try and do what I can do.
You're a legend. You're an actual living legend.
I just feel so lucky. I really do. And every day I feel so thankful for what I've got. You know, my little boys, like I said, I've never felt more content or happy in my whole life. And every time I talk about it, which is pretty much every day, like I just thank my lucky stars that I got through because there were times during my career where I could have like quite easily lost it, you know, lost all of this. Yeah, I just, like I said, I'm really fortunate that I've come out and I'm where I am at. More resilient than ever. So
Are you going to have any more kids?
No way. I've had a hysterectomy. I'm done.
Kitchen's closed.
Yeah, kitchen's well and truly closed. No, I had severe endometriosis throughout my career. So I've had like a million laparoscopes and it just got to the point where take it, I'm done.
You actually fell pregnant before you retired while you were still competing. Is that right?
I did fall pregnant in 2013. I had a miscarriage, but when I retired, I fell pregnant after I'd retired. I was, meant to go to the WNBA and I fell pregnant and I sort of called it quits. And that would have been my last year in America because I was pregnant, but then I miscarried a little bit after that and I couldn't really go back. But that was upsetting. But a lot of women go through it and I had more miscarriages in my life. So
the first successful pregnancy you have after a miscarriage is very emotional, isn't it? It's a real head challenge as much as a physical one. Did you find that?
I did. So my first successful pregnancy with Harry, I actually went over to America, I think, for my retirement. They lifted my jersey up into the rafters at the arena there. And the day after that in Seattle, I started bleeding. And I had 2 Australian teammates over there with me and they took me to the doctor. And, I'll never, ever forget just the tears because I was just so over the moon, you know, to be pregnant. And, as soon as you see the blood after already having a miscarriage. And I was in tears and just devastated. And I got to the doctor and he said, no, there's still a good, strong heartbeat. So they told me not to fly home because I was meant to fly home sort of the next day after that. They said, look, you just need to rest until the bleeding stops and then go home. So I waited probably 2 or 3 days and then I flew back, went straight to the doctor here and, he's still holding on, little bloke. And then, and then another funny story. It was about 11 weeks and little guy's still hanging on. I'm still bleeding a little bit. And I had a car accident on the way up to Sydney for, I was doing the commentary for Rio and I had a car accident on my way up. But it was right across the road from a hospital. So I was able to run across the road and he was still hanging on.
Oh, my goodness.
My first pregnancy was just horrible. Like I was scared the whole time. I was constantly checking myself. It was just, probably too much information.
No, it's true. I mean, I've been through the same thing where every time you go to the toilet, you're just looking at your undies and just going, is it okay? Is it okay? Is it okay?
It makes me sort of cry thinking about it. But
it's very hard.
Because I put on so much weight as well. And I really had I can't even remember what it's called now. I had some sort of problem. Anyway, he came a little bit early and yeah, that's the end of the story. After that, he came early, he was healthy, and I'm so lucky to have 2 healthy kids. It's just incredible.
How was birth for you?
I had 2 C-sections. Both my kids came early because what's that condition called? Isn't that funny that I can't remember it?
Preeclampsia.
Preeclampsia. That's exactly what I had.
Yeah. That's really dangerous with the blood pressure, yeah.
Yeah, I had 2 C-sections. They weren't bad experiences, and yeah, the kids were healthy and it was good.
That's what counts. It's been so lovely talking to you.
Lovely to talk to you.
It's just so lovely. Gosh, you've had an interesting life. Thank you for listening to this No Filter. If you are looking for something to listen to next and your ears are still hungry, check out Mamamia's podcast For Your Wardrobe. It's called What Are You Wearing? And it's hosted by Tamara Davis and Denny Todorovich. And they are not fancy fashion people. They are incredibly down to earth. They are size inclusive, age inclusive, style inclusive. And they really break down all the things that you need to know about, well, not really the world of fashion, but how to get dressed, how to feel good in clothes, where to find well-priced, stylish, interesting, well-made clothes. Because fashion is so much more than just trends. It's about feeling good. The assistant producer of No Filter is Lucy Neville, and the executive producer is Eliza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman, and if you want more of us in your life, come and visit the Mamamia app. And just by reading or listening to our content, just by listening to this podcast today, you are helping to fund girls in schools in some of the most disadvantaged countries in the world. Through our partnership with Room to Read, we're currently sending 300 girls to school every single day, and our aim is to get to 1,000 and then 10,000. Because at Mamamia, our core purpose is to make the world a better place for women and girls.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.